Don't forget to like and subscribe. You can also listen to this on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and we have a PayPal account for any donations that you'd like to give. Your generosity is greatly appreciated.
Welcome, everybody, to the Gate Expectations podcast. I bring in a weekly guest to talk all things Yu-Gi-Oh! And get to know a little more about each person I talk to. It's the only Yu-Gi-Oh! Podcast that is run by a full-fledged journalist such as myself. This is episode 30. If you haven't checked it out yet, you can check out earlier podcasts with guests like Steven Trifanowski, Jesse Cotton, Team Samurai X1, Farfa, Crush Cards, Simo, and many more. My guest for this week is the last member of Team Fala Galera 4.0 that won the most recent LCS 3v3 tournament. He is also a two-time YCS champion and a UDS champion, all in the span of a month. It's Paulo Gonçalves. Paulo, thank you so much for coming on to my podcast.
Thank you. Fala galera.
I hope I said that. Yeah, I hope I said that right, because I don't know any Portuguese whatsoever. And Christian and Gabriel told me last week about what fala galera meant.
Yeah, it's just like what's up, something like that.
Yeah.
You did well. You did well.
I mean, like I know two other languages as well, so I mean it's not like I'm bad at other languages. It's just I've never spoken Portuguese. It's not something that really gets taught in Canada, so so everything is completely foreign to me. Like no joke intended.
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense.
So again, thank you for coming on, Paulo. Of course, you couldn't make it last week to join the rest of your team, but you were able to come with me this week, and you won the LCS 3v3 tournament. And how did that feel, winning that championship?
Yeah, it was really cool because we went X2 really early. I think by round 5, we were X2. So that means we needed to win every single round until the end. All the speed and all the top cuts. Yeah, so it was really tense because there was no more room for mistakes, right?
Yeah, so there was a lot of pressure on you really early just because you had those kind of like not the greatest rounds to start off with. What rounds did you lose in that tournament?
Me personally or the team?
Oh, the team, sorry.
The team, we lost round 4 and 5.
Did you win your rounds in those rounds or no?
In round 5, I won my match, but they lost.
Okay. And what about round 4?
I won.
You won okay, so you won both of them. So unfortunately,
no, sorry. I lost one of them. I lost.
You lost. Okay, got it.
One of them I lost, and the other one I won, but the team lost.
Yeah, that's fair. Because sometimes in the middle of a match, and then your other two teammates lose, and then it's over from there because you can't win from there. Which I've happened to me before many times.
Yeah, but in 3v3s, we usually don't try to be too attached on like personal records. Because sometimes you are the one who is carrying, and the other times you are the one who's being carried. So if you have like this mentality of, okay, I won and my team lost, and get like and not super happy about it, is really weird way to approach this type of tournament.
Yeah, if you think like that, do you think that it might cause problems with the team because one person gets maybe like a little bit like arrogant or cocky because they're the one winning, but the other two aren't winning? Does that seem to happen?
For sure. Like we are really, it would happen. This is the thing that might cause problems. For example, I've been playing. I played all Konami, no, not all, but I played some of the Konami 3v3 right at the Atlanta, which we won, YCS Atlanta, and then I played with another team, 2 other different players. Because in Atlanta, I played with Michelle and Nectar. And then in Lima, I played with Rafael Nevin and Ramiro Garcia. So we were different teams, right? And then I played 2 more LCSs in 3v3. So I kind of have some experience in that type of event. And what I learned with only those 4 events is that you have to be like, okay, we lost. Let's try to move on because you have to come back though from those bad situations.
Yeah, that's something I want to touch on later on because you won the first YCS 3v3 event, but let's focusing on the LCS just for a little bit there. We'll start here and then we'll work our way forward. And I asked the same question last week to Gabriel and Christian, so of course I got to ask you now. So, how did the team come about in your eyes?
What do you mean by that?
Oh, sorry. Like, why did you reach out to Gabriel and Christian for Team Galafalera 4.0?
So I was going to play with Christian anyway. The other LCS 3v3, I also play with Christian. Christian is like my main testing partner for like 3 years maybe. So we every time we can play together, we probably will. And then Netz Gabriel was doing really well. I think he's the best performing LCS player since became a thing, right? He won 3 now. So, and he's Brazilian, so that also helps for the communication part, which is important for, and also really a good player. So it was really easy to choose him.
So, like, when you were playing with Gabriel, like, were you guys speaking like Portuguese to each other back and forth during that tournament?
Yeah, I mean, many times we were all 3 together, so we spoke in English. But when it was only me and Gabe, we did in Portuguese. It's easier.
Yeah, and does that make it easier for communication just because that you're speaking Portuguese, which is a language that isn't really spoken a lot in the LCS, if at all, aside from you two, or your opponents really can't hear what you're saying to Gabriel just because it's an online 3v3, so it's a little bit different.
So it's different the way these tournaments go in real life and LCSs. In LCSs, you join a room with only your team players, and you talk with them whatever you want, right? But in real life YCSs, at least the first one that we played, our team were 2 Brazilian players, me and Michel, and 1 Chilean player.
Yep.
Right? And we couldn't speak besides English, which was a really weird rule.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because the rule for that first event, was that everything talked among teammates was public knowledge. So it should be in a language that the other team could understand. So that was really problematic for us because I do speak English and Michel kind of does. Like he understands English well, but Hector didn't. So we couldn't talk to Hector at all in the tournament. Like we could have talked like, attack with this and set this card. Like this is universal. So he could understand that, but more in-depth conversations, it was impossible to do. So, yeah.
So it was a lot easier to communicate with your teammates, at least doing the online LCS event.
Yeah, much easier.
All right. So you were playing the exact same deck list that Christian was playing. You both played Zoo Elvich, and I knew that there was a lot of discussion in between you and him about the deck list. First of all, I think the first question that came out of everybody's mouth when they saw your deck list is like, why were you running like Vert Anaconda when you had no target for it? And even though I touched up on this last week, what was your reason for doing that?
So that was Christian's idea. He has to get the credit for that. We work on the deck together, like the whole build. I came with the idea of playing Zoeldish, and he was really hesitant at the first, but then I showed it was a good idea. But the idea of the Anaconda specifically was his, because a common scenario that we come across was, especially against Dryton, is that one of the main ways for Dryton to grind against us is by doing Zeus at some point. And when they make the Zeus, it's usually a 4 material Zeus. And in the Dryton perspective, there is no reason for them to use Zeus effects to send your monsters to their grave, especially Lord, because it stands Lord, I can bring Lord back and try to attack, so I force a Zeus effect. So what happens is that they make Zeus on the extra monster zone, and we have 2 monsters on the board, for example, a Lord and a Conquistador or a Vaquero. And then we come across the situation a lot, and then we thought, okay, it would be really cool if you had a link to monsters, something that we can use with this Lord and this Conquistador to make something that forces the Zeus effect. So what we did was to read every single link to in the game. Went to the B and read every single link to. And then Christian realized why we should play Anaconda, because if we summon Anaconda, there is no way that the opponent knows that we play or don't play Dragoon. It's super risky to call the bluff. So it's almost impossible. I think if I were the player with the Zeus and my opponent summons an Anaconda, I would use the effect. So it's almost impossible to not use. So that was a really good idea. Unfortunately, it didn't happen in the tournament. And I think it was because myself, I only play against one Dryton. And I think he only also played against one Dryton, which was really weird because there was a lot of Drytons in the tournament. I think that was the main reason that didn't happen. So yeah, that was the reason. There's more other niche reasons, like he can force a Conquistador or a Trident or Shushi, but the main reason was this Zeus scenario that happened a lot against Trident. Really, really common.
I believe Christian told me last week that it happened a lot during testing, that you'd have to make the Anaconda, but it said that it didn't happen during the tournament. So did you get that a lot during testing, where you use the Anaconda to bait out the Zeus?
Yes, because we test together. So when he said it happened in testing, because it happened to both of us at the same time, because we happened to test together a lot. And yes, it testing happened a lot, almost once a match against Triton. It was really common. So it was worth it to cut a good card with a second Borbo for the Anaconda, because it was game changing in the matches where it happened.
Yeah. It's funny because Christian said that he wished he got to play a second Borbo in his deck list.
But I guess it was in retrospective, right? Like the way the tournament went, that we only play against one Dryton, and then in those matches it didn't happen. But let's say we play against, because Gabe played against like I think 4 or 5 Drytons. Imagine if I was a player C, for example. I would be the one playing this many Drytons. So I think it would be really possible that this situation would come up.
Okay, got it. And if you were to play this deck again in future tournaments, would you still keep in the Vert Anaconda or no?
Probably not.
Probably just because everybody knows now that was your strategy all along.
Yeah, and I mean the fact that it would be me playing the same deck with the same card, then make people more likely to think it's a bluff. The nice idea would be, in fact, play Dragoon this time. But imagine you make the Anaconda, and go, oh no, I know it's a bluff, and then you use the effect and you have the Dragoon. But I don't know if it's worth it. I mean, I can try, but it's weird. It's weird. I don't think so.
Do you think that people who like look at your build, do you think that this might be like a new trend that might happen later on, because you did it you put Anaconda with nothing in it, and then people might start doing that as well?
Yeah, this can happen in other decks too. I mean, maybe this month is too soon. But I don't know, in 2 months, 3 months, people forget about this, and then some random deck summons Anaconda, and then I have to kill this. This is a thing that can come from time to time. I don't think it's crazy.
Yeah, and who knows what's going to happen, because like this is the first time I've ever seen anybody put an Anaconda and not have like a viable target for it. So this really like opens up a lot of there's a lot of questions about this now, if people are going to go forward with this or not. And even then, people still might question. Like, if I see an Anaconda, I still think that they're going to use their effects. It doesn't matter like what you did. I still think it. So I'm going to eat your bait. In other words, I'm going to fall for your trap.
Yeah, it's really because it functions really well, because Dragoon is so oppressive that you can't risk it, right? Unless you're really sure. It's super hard to risk it.
Yeah, unless you can like deal with it immediately, or you have something even better for it. Like it's something I wouldn't want to risk anyway, because Dragoon is so powerful, and it completely ends games, especially when you get a battle phase with it as well.
Yeah. So it's weird. I don't know how popular this is going to be. But we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see soon enough. I know another question that was raised, that was discussed between you guys, is that you ran only 2 Golden Lord, and there was talk about like 1, 2, or 3 Golden Lords. So what made you decide on going with 2 Golden Lords?
Yeah, that was the last question that we had to answer in the deck. Christian was more leaning on 1 Lord, and I was on 2. I'm still not sure, to be honest. It's super close. Like at the end, it's between 1 and 2. It's not 3, never 3, because Lord is awful to draw. It's good going second, but it's the worst card in the deck going first to open with. So I really wanted to play one. In the last, I played 3 LCSs before this one. This is my 4th LCSs, and I play Elvish decks, different Elvish decks, but Elvish decks in all of them. And I play one Lord in all of them. So I'm really in favor of playing one Lord. But I think in this meta, there are more tools to banish Lord than before. Crow is more popular than in the previous meta games, where the last LCSs before this one. Also, some people randomly, I don't agree with this, but people just do it. Some people side Psycho Reader, which is a card for Dryton, and they side against Elvish because it can banish Lord. So I feel like it's risky. And also sometimes Virtual World has some tools to banish. I think Jaja is one. I don't remember the names. There's the XYZ6 and the XYZ.
The fan
and Jaja, I think, right?
Yeah.
They both can banish cards from somewhere. And also Shang, right? That also can banish cards. So they have like a meta deck has tools. I know it doesn't happen too often, but I think it's often enough for me to get a little bit scary. And there is also the possibility that you play against some Elvish deck, right? I did play against 2 in this tournament. So, and 1 Lord against Elvish deck is super hard. Another thing that I think made us use the second Lord, even Christian, which he was the one wanted to play one more. And there's not a single card that we really wanted to put instead. Okay, we can cut this Lord, but what do we put instead? We didn't have like a clear answer to that. It's not like we had a 41st card that we really want to play and couldn't. Because if we had, maybe we play one Lord, but there is nothing for us that we want to put instead. So that's why we play 2 in the end.
Did you side out a Golden Lord a lot during that tournament, just so you could have one, or did you usually just keep in 2?
I sided out a lot. Depends on the matchup.
A lot.
Yeah. For example, against Virtual World, I don't. And I play 4 Virtual World, so I didn't. Against Elvish, I also don't. So I kept on that too. For example, but against Dryton, I did. I play against a Dryton, against the full combo decks like Dryton, Adamaspator, and Dragon Link. I play one of each, and against them, I set out one Lord every single time. I mean, first and second. But the other, so this was 3 matches, and all the other 7 matches, we played 10 matches. All the other 7, I kept the second one. So I think it was for the best in retrospect.
Can you explain why you would side out the Golden Lord in certain matchups and not in other matchups? Just give me a recap of why that is.
So Adamaspator or Dragon Link and Dryton, I usually call them full combo decks. They're whatever they try to do is usually a FTK for you. So we have to stop them. So you need as much space in the deck as possible to use the hand trap, which we play a bunch of, to stop them. So and cards like Lord going first and second they are not a starter like a zoo or land or some green, and is not a hand trap to stop the opponent. And usually against those type of decks, you need as many cards of those 2 categories in comparison to other type of cards like I set out the Black Awakening, I set out the Second Lord, things like that are more for grindish deck matches. And these matches, you have more urgency to have a response. Those games are usually 2 turns, 3 turns long. So it's less likely. And also, it's super unlikely that your one Lord is banished, because those decks doesn't have a clear tool to banish, and they can't side Psycho Readers against you, because they usually have to side Spell Trap removal or other type of cards in comparison to Psycho Reader. So it's really hard for the one Lord to be banished.
Did your Golden Lords ever get banished at all during the tournament?
Not at the same time. every time I had two, one was randomly banished, but every time I had one, it wasn't ever banished.
Okay, so you never had a problem at all with the number of golden lords that you played in the deck throughout the entire tournament.
Not at this event.
Yeah, okay. I know another question that was raised about your deck list. I think it was a discussion between you and Christian. Was that you decided to go with a mistaken arrest in your side deck as well, which I think was a brilliant call, especially against Drytrons. But why would you decide to side mistaken arrest?
So usually the type of card that we want to, the first thing, we wanted to have something really good going first. And that something had to be something that wasn't weak to the expected cards that our opponents would side against us, which are usually the spell trap removal. Our options were Barter, which we played, the Mistaken Arrest, and the other card that we didn't play was the Anti-Spell. Anti-Spell is good against the spell trap removal that might side against us. We went for Mistaken Arrest in the end because, in our opinion, the going first against Triton post side is more difficult than going first post side against Virtual World. So the comparison was between Mistaken Arrest and Anti-Spell. If we wanted to have a better card against Virtual World, it would be Anti-Spell instead. But since we believed that we want something else that's really good against it's really good against Triton, we used the Mistaken Arrest. That it was more or less that reasoning.
So when I saw that a Mistaken Arrest in the side deck, what I originally thought was it was for Drytrons, first of all. But because you know that Drytrons will side in like Harpy's Feather Duster and Lightning Storm, even if they get it off, you can still chain Mistaken Arrest, and they're probably going to be locked in for the turn, and then you still buy yourself another turn anyway, and then you can like reset all your resources again with all the trap cards that they destroyed, and you can still keep going against them. You have another turn against them if you just play Mistaken Arrest.
That's exactly his reason. That's why we didn't play like cards. Mistake is better than Mistaken Arrest, for example. They do the same thing. Mistake is forever. Mistake Arrest is just one turn. But Mistake Arrest can be destroyed by those cards that you mentioned. So it would be better to play Mistake, and if you flip Mistake and they have no out, is of course much better. But we thought that the one turn that Mistake Arrest give you, and being really strong against Parent Trap removal, is more important than have a stronger card than Mistake, the actual Mistake. And that was pretty much the reason.
Yeah, because if you play the Mistaken Arrest, then you pretty much get to go back to the same state you were before, like before you set all your cards, and because they're not going to be able to kill you that turn. And at least if they have anti-spell fragments up, they can at least try to take it out with, that they're going to have Nightmare Phoenix or Nightmare Unicorn if they get to it. So they have other ways of getting rid of that card, and that they're not going to play Herald of Green Light because they always play Purple Light, so they can't really stop it either.
They can't. It's pretty much impossible.
Yeah. So that's what I thought you had Mistaken Arrest for. And I know that there was like a big discussion between you and Christian about that, putting Anti-Spell in. How did you persuade him to play with Mistaken Arrest over Anti-Spell?
I don't think I need to persuade him. I think we came to the same conclusion in the end.
Okay.
Because we test a lot against those two decks. Our idea in this tournament, by playing the Zul Outlash, which was really under the radar, was to counter those two decks specifically, and then we figured out against everything else. That was the idea, and then again we came to the conclusion that we needed to cover more the going first against Triton because it was more difficult. Because I say more difficult because our regular interactions with opponents like Trident, Conquistador, cards like that, they are much better against the Virtual World than they are against Triton. So in order to compensate that lack of power that those cards has in that situation, Mistaken Arrest was the chosen one.
So now that we're moving on for almost one more question about this. So how did it feel to actually win that event? I should say before we move on, because I didn't even ask you about that.
Yeah, it was really cool because we had I I specifically had so many points that I thought I would lose in this, and there was this in the top 4. I even posted my channel. I made match commentaries of all my matches for the LCS, half in Portuguese and half in English, and I just posted the top 4, so I rewatched today, and in top 4, the way that I won game 3 was insane. And this game 3 we were on a call together because it was the last match, right? And when the game started, we had only one hand trap, which was Crow, and the opponent start with instant fusion, so negate the Crow because of I don't remember the name of the card, but the one who negates hand traps. The future.
A Millennium
Yes,
Master Strix.
I'm really bad with card names. I know the effects, I know what they do, but I'm with names. So they have this instant fusion to the Crow, so Crow was pointless, and then the opponent had Zeta and Bentane. So and then I said, okay, we lost, right? But somehow something happened I can't explain, and then I think he messed up on the combo at some point and only end on Ultimateness with only Eva as a negation, but Eva would get more cards, right? He would use Ultimateness card, even then Eva would get 2 more cards. But the fact that we had Crow and hold the Crow made us use an effect, and he uses the Ultimateness, then Crow chain banished the Eva, so we couldn't trigger, so we could play. And it was funny because as soon as I drew the hand and we would together playing, we were like, okay, this is it. We got top 4. This is really cool. We went really far. And then something happened. And then we go, okay, maybe we have a chance. All we need to do is to draw a Zoo on the top deck. A Zoo monster. And then we drew Prrj. It was the best one. It was the best one. But any Zoo would do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was cool. It was cool.
Did you have an Elbland up just out of curiosity?
That was the card that I used land, and then I got Lord, and I used Lord, and he used Ultimateness. I chain Crow, banished the Eva, and then now he has 0 cards in hand, no negations left, and then I use Barrage and go for Zooks.
Oh yeah. See, I love when I play Drytrons, I love to discard Eva as fast as I can so I can get 2 more. So because I don't want to discard Eva and then have no fairies in my hand and then someone negate my Eva and then I can't negate that to get 2 more. So I think that's it's a rookie mistake that I think a lot of Drytron players make, is that they're always holding their Eva until the last card instead of being at maybe the second last card so they can get more negations.
Yeah, but he used as the first one because it was the only one. I think that was the issue. Somehow I didn't pay too much attention on what he was doing. In the replay. But I'm fairly certain that he could have done better than only Ultimatum with only Eva.
Because typically when I have Drytrons and I've got per Ultimateness up, I've got probably at least 1 or 2 negates and then Eva on top of that. So I have 3 negates and then Eva will get me 2 more. So that's what I try to have when I have Ultimate on the field.
Didn't work for him, and he got super punished by the girl.
Yeah. So again, when I heard you won the 3v3, it made me really happy. I'm oh good, because I have to get you on now, because we talked for a lot of for some time about getting you on eventually, and then finally it was okay, I gotta have you on now. And another reason why I want to wait for a little bit, because you just recently became a coach for Duelist Academy back in November, and I thought, let's wait a little bit. Let's see you get some time in with Duelist Academy, and then we'll come back. And then now that we've finally done it, how's your experience been with Dueling Academy so far as
I
a
really
coach?
like him. Before Duelist Academy, I did the coach session by myself for the Brazilian community, for Brazilian players in Portuguese. But even when Duelist Academy started, and they talked with me to be a coach with them, but I wasn't too. I think I wasn't too prepared, not by giving the coaches, but because of my English, I was not super. What the word?
Comfortable?
Yes, comfortable. Yeah, I'm still not super comfortable. I'm forgetting words and all, but now I can I can put my point across, right? People can understand what I'm trying to say. And I started doing content in English to my channel, and then this idea for me to be a coach again, they come up, and then this time I accept it, and it's been really good, really good. I have a lot of students there, so that's really cool. And I think all of them like having the sessions with me, which is really nice.
Now, I asked this to Gabriel. Told me this last week, and I'll ask you: do you find yourself speaking more English now than Portuguese as of late?
I do speak a lot of English because of my students in the English Academy, and half of my videos are in English now because I was forcing myself into this transition, right? I've been doing content in Portuguese for my channel for, I don't know, almost 10 years now. And as soon as I started traveling, because I played for a long time, and I always did well in Brazil and South America. But then in 2017, I started traveling, really traveling. I played for a long time, but I only start like playing like multiple ICSs per year in 2017. And then I started to be more known by the worldwide community, I think. And I started to test my English way more often because I went to US, I went to other places where I needed to speak in English. So I was getting more and more comfortable. And then I started to do this transition to English content. And then we are doing this now.
Well, now that you've got your YouTube channel up, it's a lot of videos about commentary, both in English and Portuguese. Is there anything else that you do on your YouTube aside from commentary?
Yeah, I have three different type of videos that people really like, but those are in Portuguese. One that I tell stories about my Yu-Gi-Oh career since the beginning. So I came back every week. I made a video about and they are like 1 hour long, about my tournaments for 15 years ago. And it is cool because I had to make research and do research and try to find some deck list for me for 15 years ago. And it's really cool. It's really cool. And I have a lot of memories from back then when I was like 15, 16. And people really enjoy the stories. And the other type of it that I do, many people don't know exactly how coach sessions work. So especially in Brazil, I don't know how the worldwide community are about this coaching thing in Yu-Gi-Oh! But I realized that in Brazil, many people didn't understood exactly how that meant, how that went. So what I did, I got another YouTube, the Shadow, and I do the coach sessions with him, and I upload them on my channel. So people know how that works. So this is a good thing for people to know how that works, and it does advertise what I do. And then after that, people started doing more because they now actually know how that functions.
So how did you get the idea of doing commentary on your own matches for your YouTube channel?
So I feel like not many people does that, right? And I don't know why. I think it's a shame that many good games are lost. Because there is not many. I know there is, but not many coverage from this type of events. And I always rewatch my matches even more than 2 times. And then since I always do this, I realized, okay, I should do this to my channel and do the commentary on my replays, because I often did the replays commentaries from replays from other people, like the Big Grinder does, for example. I usually do that as well. But I started doing that on my own when I have LCSs, of course. And people really enjoy it because they know exactly what I was thinking. When I do replays for someone else, you just can imagine what they were thinking. But when I commentate my own games, I not only point out my when I did well, but I also point out when I made a mistake, and what I learned from that and why that happened. So I go really in depth on the explanation. That's why the videos are so long, because I talk a lot, because I'm really an advocate of technical play. I think it's super underrated thing in Yu-Gi-Oh! People talk about deck building a lot, and I don't agree with that too much. I think technical play is extremely underrated and important, even now. But yeah, that's why I go so in depth in the comments that I do for my running plays, even from each other people replays.
Yeah, it's like in sports. Like, for example, if we like go to football, like you would look at your own games to see what kind of what things you did well, what things you didn't do well, and then you do better for like the next match that you have. And it's just like Yu-Gi-Oh as well. You look over where did you go well, where did you not do well, where did you make a mistake, where was it that you had like to make a decision, a good one or a bad one, and that's what this is supposed to be, so you can get better. Because I don't think that a lot of people really look back at their own games and really think like that. They just maybe like blame like one easy thing and then just go on to the next game instead of just looking at like what you do and then just get better because of it. Because I think that's a great way to get better at this game, is like reviewing your own games and seeing like where you went wrong or where you went right.
I pretty much play every single game that I play twice at minimum, because I play the games and then I rewatch the games, almost all of them in Dueling Book. Dueling Book really helps on this, and I think it's a wonderful tool for testing and for learning. I really like learning. Really niche interactions, things like that can give me an edge. And the only way for you to realize those type of things is really, really careful on how you criticize your own games. And I try my best to not put when I lose, for example, put the reason that I lost in luck and things out of my control, because there are way more things in your control in the game that people think. Because okay, maybe you got unlucky at some point, but why you get unlucky? Maybe you choose the wrong deck, maybe you side out the wrong card, you drew the wrong card at the wrong time, but why? This guy should be here or not? There's so many things that you can blame on you, and I think people believe, maybe not on purpose, but they try to put the blame on something else because they don't feel as bad by themselves. And I do the complete opposite. Yeah. I try my best to find where I did wrong. I want to be wrong, because if I'm wrong when I lost, it means that something could be improved, and that could be a win. And that makes me happy, because this could be a win. But if I lose and there is nothing I can do, not a deck, not a card, not a play, not a bluff, nothing, then it's a problem, because then it's actual things that are out of my control, and I really dislike this. I want things to be on my control, so that's why I go super into and I think many of those mistakes are in the technical play part. So
I think that's a common mistake people make when they lose games that they could never win just because of the hands that they drew. Because if you keep drawing like bad hands over and over again, then that means that maybe there's just something wrong with the deck itself, or maybe there's changes that need to be made in the deck, so that way that doesn't happen. Because like it's normal to maybe lose like a game like once or twice, that because like you just couldn't do anything at all. There's nothing you could have done. But then if it keeps happening again and again, then something has to be wrong aside from just luck.
Yeah.
At that point.
And you have to be really careful about blaming luck, because luck is sometimes involved for your decisions prior the hands are drawn, right? This decision on the deck build, the way you sided, if you sided the wrong card. So, and then you got unlucky because of that. But in fact, it was your decision, and you give yourself the opportunity to be unlucky. This is really hard to point out if something like that happened in the game. That's why, because there are too many variables. So it's really hard to see exactly what was the reason that you lost, but you have to try your best to try to make that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely you do. And one thing I like to do when like I watch my own games is that when I do my moves, I try to repeat out loud to myself and say, okay, this is the move I would do, and see if it's the exact same move that I did in the game, or if it's not, and then compare why is it that I said this, but myself, like earlier in the video, did this move, because I think that's a great way to learn, like if you would play differently, or if you've kind of changed a little bit or anything like that. I think it's a great way to like review yourself when you're going over
I do
your
that a
own
lot
duels.
too. Like you compare your present yourself with your past self.
Yeah. Yes.
Because sometimes you get, wait, why I did this? Something happened here,
Yes.
because I wouldn't do this now, but why I did this before? Am I missing something? This happens a lot.
Yeah, and it happens to me too. And I've looked at like past matches on myself. I'm like, why did I do that move? Or like, I can't believe I made that move. Like, I've never done that move in my life. I don't practice it, but I did it now in this game. Why did that? Like, this happens to me a lot. Like, I like to go off script sometimes and like do a move that is completely weird, even though I practice it another move a million times and want to do that. But sometimes I mix it up randomly out of nowhere. So that seems to happen for me. I don't know if it happens to you, but I think that method is a good method of seeing if you know how to like learn from what you did, or or at least get better.
For me, the purpose of playing, winning is a consequence of being better. Like I try to be better, and then if I win, yeah, sure. But the goal is being better than before.
Yes, absolutely. That's always my New Year's resolution. I always tell myself, just be better than what you were last year. I always tell myself that, and I'm trying to keep that resolution right now. So far, is get better and better.
Yeah,
I think I'm doing better, but I'm trying. So again, this isn't your first like 3v3 championship, because you won the very first one in America that happened at Atlanta, and you also had to play Jesse Cotton in the finals, and you were the last remaining table that happened. So you have a lot of experience in the 3v3. So how did winning this LCS compare to when you won the very first 3v3 YCS?
It was insane. It was insane. It was the first one, and then it was really, really cool event. 3v3s, especially in real life, are insane. I think Konami will keep doing those, because I think they liked, and I think they realized the players liked. One really good thing about 3v3 is that there's less variance involved, because we can lose a match over here and there, but it's hard for a really good team to lose 2 matches at the same round. So the likelihood of good teams reaching the top cut is pretty much guaranteed. Like in the top cut, it was absurd. One of the best, if not the best, top cut ever in a YCS. Almost everyone that you know, that you feel, okay, imagine this guy topped this event. If he was there, he probably did. And for example, my top cut in this event was completely absurd. In top 16, I played against Boden. In top 8, I played Christian Rina. In top 4, I played against Deception. In the finals, I played against Cotton. So, completely out of control top cut. And it was really cool, really cool. I was really happy to win with 2 other players that I really like for many years. Michel is my friend from many years, more than 10 years. In Brazil, we live in the same city, and we always joke with each other who would be the one who win a YCS first, and then we won at the same time. So no one did. And Hector already had a YCS. He won a YCS in Chile before. We didn't won a YCS before that. So, and Hector, I know Hector for many years too. So it was really cool, because he also represented South America. And that was insane. Many people were following. There was so many people rooting for us. It was crazy. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, because it was really cool that when I saw you beat Jesse in that match because he was playing his, I believe it was like his Danger Thunder, and that deck was crazy for its time. And when you won your 3 events in that 1 month, you decided to go with the strikers to keep it slow and keep it easy, but it worked for you. So what was your deck choice behind what was your deck choice, your reason for running strikers for those events?
I think Sky Striker was one of the best control decks ever made, and since, like I said, I'm super into technical play, that deck gave me room to put that on the table a lot, because especially in that format, it was really hard to be completely blown out by the opponent. So almost every single time that you played, you actually played. Many decisions were made, and this is where the technical play shines. And I played a lot of Sky Striker, a lot. With Sky Striker, before those free events, I had 2 back. I don't know if you know, but I came second twice in 2 weeks as well. So in November, I got second in YCS São Paulo, and then 1 week later, I got second in UDS Monterrey. So I got second in 2 weeks, and then 2 months later, I won 3 in a row. So I got like 5 finals in 3 months, which was crazy.
Insane.
And I play a lot of Sky Strike. I play Sky Strike in all of those events. And one of the best decks ever made, was really well positioned for the tournament because you play a lot of mirrors, and mirrors were super skill intensive, and I played infinite mirrors. I don't think I lost a mirror in those 3 events. I think I won all of them. I think I lost one. Sorry. Nice. I lost 1 mirror in those 3 events, but I won probably like 20 mirrors in 3 events combined.
I mean, that's still good though, because those 2 second places, they happened in 2018, and then once you got into the new year 2019, that's where you won your 3 events, and you were just absolutely crazy through those 3 events, because I don't think I've ever heard of anybody in history winning like 3 events in a row. I know people have won twice, but never 3 times in a row. So when I finally heard you win your 3rd one, I'm like, this is crazy. Like when I saw you beat Cotton, I looked to it, I was like, oh, it's Paulo. Like, oh my god, that's his 3rd event in a row that he won now. This is insane. I mean, that's so you're like in a league of your own, being able to win 3 events.
I still don't believe that happened, to be honest. I still can't believe it. I mean, okay, I could have won 3 events, I think, at some point eventually. In 3 weeks, I couldn't even understand what just happened. When I won the 3rd one, I was like in complete shock. So it was crazy, completely crazy. And I played against Jesse again in Guatemala in top 8. Yeah, we play against each other as well.
Oh,
at top 16, I think, somewhere.
Yeah. So were you a little bit nervous when you found out that you had to go against him in the 3v3 in the finals?
We knew, kind of. I'm super used to playing, so I wasn't nervous, I think. Not really. I think I got more nervous. I used to get more nervous before. But since I started really playing, like I said, in 2017, when I started really playing, traveling a lot. Then, since I had so many events, I got more used to play, and I did well a lot before winning. So I was in top cut, I was in feature matches a lot, so that made me more familiar with this whole scenario. And the 3v3 was crazy because it was a really big, many cameras, 6 cameras. We wasn't at a stage and everyone was there. It was different than the actual regular feature match with you, your player, a judge, and the guy with a computer. It wasn't like that. Like a billion cameras and lights, and you have to stop at some point because they change cameras. So, there's a lot of pressure in those kinds of situations, because I haven't been in
not in a feature match on a stream, but I've been in a feature match before, just like where they just type out your duels. I've done that before, and is the pressure different between the two kinds of feature matches?
And
do you think that the video is a lot more pressure than just like, the written one?
I don't think it affects me in that instance, but I think it's different. I think for a player that's not as experienced on those type of scenarios, I think that can make someone do something wrong, for example, at some situation.
Yeah, definitely that. And so some good advice that Andres Torres told me is that, like, often I have this problem with myself, and I'm sure a lot of other people do, is that, like, when they go up against, like, a bigger name or whatnot, they get nervous because it's, like, a good player, a really good player, and then they start doing things that, like, they shouldn't be doing, or they try to trick other the big players because, like, they think that's the only way they can win. And Andres told me that, you know what, just don't worry about the name. Just play the game like normal, and then you'll have a better chance of winning like that, rather than like worrying about the name. Like, would you agree with Andreas when he told me that?
But it's really hard to do that for many people. Really difficult. And I feel that situation happens for people playing against me many times. That people get super nervous, and probably happens with Jesse and Anders and Honey, many known players. That also probably happens. And this is an edge for us, right? This is a good thing to happen. It helps us. But at some point, we all were at the other end of this, right? Before we got known. So first time I play against super known players, I got a little bit nervous. But you have to think. It's a game. You have to play. It's a person on the other side. So you just try your best and try to be calm.
And that's what I try to tell a lot of like local people that play me, and they kind of get nervous because they know that I can play the game really well. And I tell them, you never know. Like, you can, sometimes bad luck can happen, or sometimes you'll just outplay me and you'll beat me. And it's happened before. I'm sure that, like, all of us have lost a match where we thought that we were gonna, like, win easily, but get beat, because that's just happens. It's a card game. There's some luck involved that happens, and sometimes you get beat. So I'm sure that all of us have had that time where, like, we've lost when we thought we'd win. And then that happens.
This for sure happened. I usually don't enter in the match thinking that I will easily win. I respect a lot other people in that sense that I don't go easy on other players. I really play my best against every single one. I never rest when I'm playing. I always say this to my students and to everyone who watches my videos, that when I'm playing, I never rest. When I play for me and I play for the opponent. When I play for the opponent, every time he's doing something, I'm playing like I was him. So, and I do this with everyone. And this is super mental consuming. Like, your brain goes, because you're playing your game, their game, everyone else's game. So it's so many things that you have to process. But for me, it's the best way. And I do this. I'm saying this because I do this with everyone. I don't go, okay, this is a new player. Now I don't worry too much. Nope. I don't do this against anyone. I'm not taking any risks here.
Oh, okay. So let's pretend that you're my coach for Duelist Academy. What would you do for me to get better?
First thing we need to, what I usually do, I try to evaluate more or less where, if it's the first time, right, that we met, and this is the first session that we have, I usually try to evaluate where you are in the game. I'm going to ask why you play, why you topped, how many years, if you're familiar with the current format, to have a knowledge in my mind, more or less where you are in the game. If you are a player that almost topping on YCS, or you're a player that trying to get into the regional level, you just started at the game, it really depends, because the way you approach a player really, really depends where they are in the game. So this would be the first thing. I have to evaluate the person, right? Not in a bad way, like evaluate. Okay, he's thinking I'm bad, and not that. Evaluate to see the experience that you have in the game, and then then another thing that then we are going to talk about your deck, the choices that you're making, and one thing that I like to do, it is to I usually build decks for events. And then I ask the person if he has intention to play something soon. Okay, it's my locals, LCS, it's a regional extravaganza, you name it. It can be anything. And then I'm going to ask questions about the expected meta that he thinks, let's say, is a locals. Sometimes when player is trying to win locals, they know the meta game. They know which players are the best ones, which decks they have to be careful, because it's really difficult for me. For example, you're playing Dryton, and then I go like standard. You should put some hand traps in Dryton, and Dryton is really popular, so you put draws in your main deck. I don't know, something like that. But then if another guy is playing Dryton and he wants to win locals, and this locals is full of altar guys, I don't know, something ridiculous like this. You have to adapt. That's why before I give my thoughts on the choices of the deck, I usually ask a lot of questions about the metagame, what they know, what the best players are in their meta game, and so on. And then we look at the deck, things like that. And then later, one thing that I really like to do is watching replays together. You have replays of your games, playing Dueling Book or something, and then we watch together. And then we commentate together your own plays and go for what and why is that you did something, and you should do this here because of this, and explain all the reasons of everything. Because again, I'm really technical play driven. The way that I keep saying this because I think deck building is so overrated. Not saying deck building is overrated, but it's really difficult to have a really good deck. But not everyone is capable of having a good deck. So it's much better for you to spend your time trying to be a better player than a better deck builder. Unless you're really high on the Yu-Gi-Oh ladder, and this doesn't apply to almost anyone. Like only a few people can focus a lot on deck building because they are the one capable of making really good groundbreaking decks. Those are the. But if you're like an average player, a good player, even a good player, it's much better you to spend your time on technical play because it's really easy to have a good deck. Because now you play for a long time. I know this. Imagine 12 years ago, 15 years ago, it was super hard to have a deck list from someone who taught something because there was no YouTube, no deck profiles, nothing. So now everyone that tops anything posts their breakdown statistics, Yu-Gi-Oh! Scope, Duelist Academy, Dueling Book, so many tools to have a good deck. It's really hard for you to miss by a lot if you copy a deck from someone. It's really hard. One thing that you can't learn by watching a video is how to play. This is the difficult part. That's why I focus on so much.
Yes.
And I think sometimes I think that I'm talking this. I'm the only one talking about this. No one agrees with me because every time I see people talk about Yu-Gi-Oh, they go like, I barely test. I build decks off Fury. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. It sounds weird to me. And that's why I go super on technical play. And having a good deck is really meta dependent. And it's much better to waste your time, which is the precious resource that you have is your time in trying to be better. Because this not only will translate now in your results, it will translate in every single format when the deck building has to change. It has to change again. It has to change again. So, yeah. That's why I gave you all this speech about technical play.
Well, I always said that it's so easy nowadays in Yu-Gi-Oh! To play the first turn because anybody can just like memorize a combo, learn it, and then play it for every game. But I always say that it's always the second turn or the third turn that's always like was where like the best players like do well. It's because those turns really make all the difference. Because, like, again, anyone can do a first turn, but when that gets broken, you have to figure out, okay, what do I do now? Like, what are my options now? Because you never know, because every board's going to be different against you when you come to your second turn, so you don't know what to expect really, and like that. And then that's where you got to learn how to adapt.
What you just described exactly what my last deck that I play with Christian tries to get value from. It's where it thrives. It is in the fact that this type of deck, like 15 hand traps, super grindy, makes my opponents plays in situations that they are not used to do. They're not used to grind with Eldritch Zoo because the deck doesn't exist. And every time you play against Eldritch Zoo, you have to grind. There is no other option, because you either won, because I do 0 hand traps and you FTK me, or I stop you. And if I stop you, we're going to grind. So I usually going to stop him. Sometimes I lose, even if I stop you. This can happen. But even then, you will need to grind. So, and when you reach this grind situation, my opponents were never there, because they are playing Virtual World, Dryton, Adam Spear, Dragon Link against each other, right? They are more super popular, those decks. So they're playing those type of decks against each other, and they are winning, losing by almost always either FTK the opponent by whatever they do, or you stop and then you kill them. So the game doesn't go too long in order them to grind, right? So when I'm playing a deck like that I was playing, Eldritch Zoo, even Sky Strike before and Solomon Great before, decks like that I was playing in the past, they works more or less in the same way. I'm the one that my opponents never go for the grind specifically against this deck, because the deck was not on the radar. But then they never play this grindish plays. And I'm the one who always plays those grinds, because I'm the one playing this deck. So I'm not only in advantage because I'm the situation that I wanted to be, which is in the grind, but I'm super used to do that because I have to be there every single game, and they are not there. So that's why when many people watch the replays from my matches in the LCS, they always go like, but your opponent made a mistake. He lost because he made a mistake. And then the other guy made a mistake. He should have won. And they didn't, because they were never there. And that was expected for this type of deck. This wasn't a coincidence. That's a thing that many people didn't realize in the conception of this deck. This is not a coincidence. Of course, this deck gets super popular, which I really doubt, because people really dislike this type of deck for some reason. That happened, then this deck got worse, because people will be more used to playing those situations. But if it didn't happen, I think it still can be really good. And this is why this deck was a really good choice for the event, in my opinion. I still believe that. It's not because we won, because I did believe that even before.
Yep. So for example, when I play against like Eldritch decks, I know that this is the kind of deck that you can't win against them in the first turn. It's near impossible to do because of like the way the deck works and the way the deck is built. Because if I went against you right now, unless you've got 15 hand traps in there, and you have another 9 traps on top of that, so that's really tough to get around, like on the first turn. So if I play like Altergeist, or if I play against Strikers, for example, hard to win on the very first turn. So like, if I'm playing Drytrons, for example, I'm not going to commit all of my resources on the board at once. Like there are some times where I can make both Vanities, Ruler, and Perfection, but I might have like maybe one Negator in my hand. I might want to go like just make an Ultimateness and just have like maybe 3 negates on it, and then next turn maybe try to bring out Ruler because I want to shut off all your trap cards if I can do that. But I have to stress that you cannot try to just win games really quick against those kinds of decks, because a really good player knows how to slow the game down really hard against those kinds of decks. So like I always expect to play a long game against those kinds of decks. And I don't know if you agree with me or not that statement, but I believe that if you know you're going to go against a deck that is very slow, like you have to go with that pace, or else you're not going to keep up, right?
Because if you go, I understood what you said, and you understood the reason that you gave, but it's even then is hard, right? You're going slowly, and now I'm also going slowly, but I'm the deck that's supposed to do that, right? So maybe you're not, and depend on the type of card. And this is super matchup dependent, what I'm going to say, but depend of the type of the grind that we are going to start to have right now is more in favor uh, of Elvish. What usually happen, they have to the Triton player, for example, they need to commit things. They just can't pass because what happens in the Triton perspective, let's say Triton, right? Triton perspective against Elvish Zoo, for example, is that if the Triton doesn't try to break the board and put whatever they want to do, now it's going to get worse before because this Dragons is going to become a zoo and the Sanguine is going to become a conquistador. And then I'm going to draw a hand trap from the top of my deck because this deck has a billion of them, right? So it's going to get worse. So if you can't break now, next time will be worse, and then you lose eventually, right? And this is more or less what happened in this type of deck, in this type of match.
And then Christian told me something about your guys' deck is that your deck is, there's not a high ceiling on it. So in order to be able to win, you have to be pretty much perfect to be able to win with this deck because, again, it doesn't have a high ceiling. So you have to be really strong in your technical play, which is what you've been saying this whole entire podcast is like how much you've emphasized and saying how important it is to have technical play. And again, like, because this deck doesn't OTK, it's very slow, but it's supposed to like take down your opponent like turn by turn. Like that's the pace it wants to play. So like, would you agree with Christian that like you have to be like pretty much perfect to be able to play this game against play this deck against like all
really
the other
well
decks?
And I think that's why this deck is not popular because it is super time consuming to get really good with this deck because not only you have to be good with this deck, you have to be good with everything else because this deck is an interaction type of deck, right? I have to use Conquistador, Bloqueiro, Trident, hand traps in a specific point against specific matchups, right? In order to know exactly where I'm going to use any of them in every single matchup, I have to be really knowledgeable of everything that every single deck is doing. So I have to know how to play Virtual World, I have to know how to play Trident, and not I know more or less they're going to do. You have to know how to play Virtual World. You have to know how to play Trident because it's not, I'm going always Ash this Lulu. I'm going always base to whatever. It's not like that. Your spot for cards completely depends on the situation. Completely. I can't say you always should this or that. Since the decision depends so much on the situation, you have to understand the situation. You have to play. That's why I say so many times that when I'm playing for both. I'm playing for me, for the opponents, because I have to put myself in the opponent's shoes while they're playing to understand why they're doing what they're doing, and then I start to realize which card they have in hand or not by the way they're in the order that they use their cards. So sometimes I'm playing against right and they use some card, like they go start with Delta. Then I know they don't have Alpha, because if they did, they would have used first. For example, against Virtual World, if they go use Lao super early, I know they don't have another Virtual World in hand because it would be really unlikely for them to use Lao this soon, because if it was me, I wouldn't do that. So this is why this is super difficult, because you have to learn this deck, which is difficult by itself. And then you have to learn everything else. So it's super time consuming. Me and Christian, we spent some hours, many hours trying to get this better.
And it really is time consuming, but there's a lot of value in learning other decks as well, even if you don't play them. Like for example, yesterday I played against one of my friends who was just he's a bit more casual than I am. So I was playing Drytrons, which he's never seen before. He hasn't played it against them yet, and he's playing Harpies, but Harpies that have like the synchro that came out. He runs the Samord that brings out the Wind Barrier statue, and he can run like the Wind Witches that bring out like Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. So he has different floodgates that he can play with. So when I told him the basic concept of the deck of how it was, he understood that try not to let me have the ritual, and also they're like next to no normal summons. You can maybe normal summon Manju and Dawn Knight, and that's it. Those are the only two, and Cyber Angel. But at the same time, like the wind barrier statue can stop Cyber Angel, and then you don't want to draw the Dawn Knight, and then Manju is like the only thing that can maybe save you against that wind barrier statue. So he understood that, okay, this doesn't normal summon a whole lot, so I'm going to try to stop your normal summons as much as possible, and maybe to get a second floodgate. Like, he understood the concept of what to do, even though he never knew like how the deck worked or anything like that. So so once I told him that concept, he understood, okay, this is what I got to stop. This is what I'm going to try to prevent him from doing. And I think that he won't be able to do anything. And he did that very successfully against me last night because he understood the concept. So I think that is kind of like the same thing here. Like, if you understand the core concepts of every single deck, you'll understand where to stop them, because, you're not going to stop every single thing that comes out at them. And you got to let some effects go.
Really changes by the way they use their cards. So it's not as simple. Sometimes I see some oversimplification on how these games work. And, okay, I guess it's that you just stop this card and you win. It's not like that. If it was this simple, I wouldn't be playing this. I like the fact that it's complex, because it gives me a possibility to get better, right? And have an edge against my opponents. So if it was simple, I wouldn't like it. I like the fact that it's complex. So, yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes we can make an argument, and I'm just saying this off the top of my head, but I could argue that maybe stopping Zeta is more important than stopping Alpha in Drytrons, because you don't want any access to that ritual, because it limits a lot of plays that Drytrons can make.
It depends,
if they don't
right?
have that
Because if
it's the
Zeta tribute, that's why I say depends. The answer to every question is always depend. Because if Zeta tributes Benten, then you can get a Manjuda can get a ritual. So, so it really depends on the situation, which interactions you have, which card they use prior. So that's why it's super difficult. But yeah, I understand your point. Like, if it's Zeta tributes, I don't know, a Delta, and then it makes a lot of sense to negate, because you deny the access to ritual summon, right?
Yeah, but it's like if I had like a GD Crow in my hand and my opponent played let's say they played Drytron Nova, and then linked it off for Link Kuribo, and then they tributed a Zeta from their hand to summon Alpha. Then it's like, okay, and I know they've got a Zeta coming out. It's like, do you rather want to let them kill Zeta? I mean, again, of course, they can search Manju as well, but there's like so many situations where like you don't know what to do. But there's like some base stop plays here, and then I might stop them here. But again, I understand what you mean by it depends, because it really is like what your situation, what your cards in. It's too hard to say at this point in time on of what you want to do.
Yeah, but for example, you can make the argument for either way. Situation. Oh, okay. Do you ash the Nova, or do you wait for the monster and then you ash the actual Dryton? The answer is depends. I mean, let's say first thing, Nova, and then you have an ash. Do you ash or not? Depends. Depends on the other 4 cards in your hand. Sometimes you have to risk to ash because you don't have enough grind, so you have to ash right now because you have to deny the name because you're going to grind for your opponent. And sometimes your hand is really good, so it's better to let him waste an effect and then use ash on that effect. So the answer is actually it's for sure depends, because it depends on the other 4 cards in your hand. So that's why many people go, should I ash this or not? Like, ash is a card that every time people ask me if I should ash something or not, and there is no answer to that. It really depends on the other 4 cards in the hand. That's why I think things are way more complex than they seem.
Yeah, it really is. And when I go against a player that I'm playing for the first time, where I don't know what they're running, I typically don't try to hand trap the first card, because I want to see what they're playing. I want to see if there's anything else that's more vital to stop, because if I can understand how their deck works a little bit better, then I have a better idea of when's the best time to hit them with a hand trap. But sometimes it's too. Again, it depends. Sometimes it's maybe that was too late at that point. Maybe you really want to hit that first card, because again, it varies on every single situation. Because I've had times where I played the first card. It's like, if they hand trap me, I lose. Okay, please don't hand trap me. They can hand trap me later on. I don't care. Just don't hand trap me here, and I'm fine.
And the fact that you have the knowledge about the other people's deck, and this comes to. And this is it's the argument again. Like, you have to know the opponent's deck to know if you have to use early, if you have to use later.
Yeah, and again, this is a completely huge separate discussion that you could have on whether whether when to like throw down like a hand trap or not, because there's always that question of, if somebody opens up with Pot of Extravagance, do you hit it with Ash Blossom or not? Like that's always the question. Like, do you or not? There's only one answer. So there's two answers, yes or no. That's really what you have. And again, like I think like the Yu-Gi-Oh community is very divided on that question. And even then, I still debate myself if I'd Ash
this one
or not.
I think usually you have to.
Yeah.
Usually, I think more often than not. I think it is rare situations that you don't, especially if you know the matchup. For example, usually sometimes you don't because you know it's Dino, so you wait for the miscellaneous grade. But if you don't know the matchup, you kind of have to. But yeah, I'm just saying this on top of my head. But pot cards are weird, like fires. But you usually have to ash them. But not a rule. Nothing's a rule. But again, depends.
Oh, there's always exception to every rule, so it can always get tricky because they could be playing extravagance. It could be a deck where like there's not a lot of extenders. It could just be a huge trap deck, and you just cut them off from having 2 more traps. But if it's like a big combo deck, well, then maybe you want to not play Ash and then Ash like a combo piece that comes out later on that might be more beneficial for them. But of course, again, you never know because you don't know what deck they're playing, or we assume that you don't, because it goes back to what you said before. Every situation always depends on like on what situation you're in. So it's always difficult to answer just by theorizing. And again, that goes back to what you're saying. You can't do all theory. Like you have to practice.
And that's why I like replays so much, because in replays, when people ask me questions like this, and then I ask, okay, you have a replay of this situation? Yes, I do. And then we look at the replay, and I know the situation, and then I know the other cards in their hand. I don't know if it's game 1, game 2, game 3. I don't know where you are. You're going first or second. It really depends. So then when I look at the situation, I can have a better context to answer the question that the person might have.
Mm-hmm. So because you do all this like review with your own commentary or whatnot, did you ever have any interest in doing like Yu-Gi-Oh commentary for like YCSs or like other big events? Because like this is kind of a thing you do.
But I like competing way too much to do that. To give up on playing an event to do that, I don't think I could do that. For example, if it was an event, I don't know, some qualifier event that I wasn't qualified to play, let's say Worlds, and that I'm not inside, I can't compete in Worlds, then yes. But if it's something that, I don't know, a YCS is, no, I know me, and knowing me, I would rather play.
Yeah. Oh, I'm like a coward or a scaredy cat sometimes when I have the choice to either like work an event or play an event. Like if I think that I don't like the format, or if I don't have a deck, or if I'm not confident, then I become a coward and I decide that I'm going to go judge instead. Or if they ask me to commentate, I'll always say yes to commentating. I always will, because it's what I love doing. Also, it's what I do in my professional job. That's what I do as well. I do that for sports. So it's easy for me. So, but that's how it is. But I love playing. Like I'm a player first, and I'm a judge second. But I only judge if I'm not confident, or I don't have a deck, or if they like really need a lot of help and they have no one else to go to. But I'm like you in the sense that if I have a chance to play, I will take the chance to play, unless there's like a weird reason for me not to. Yeah, competing is way too much. Like, I'm not like the biggest fan of remote duels right now, but I understand why people enjoy it and why people do it, because it's really the only way we can play it right now. But have you been able to play a whole lot of new people ever since
I never play remote duel.
We did this remote dueling?
Never. So
no, never.
And the remote duel community is not super big in Brazil, so that's that. And like personally, I don't like very much.
Yeah.
The whole remote duel point. I understand where this is coming from. I'm not judging here, but for me, I don't like very much. I feel like I will play online on the LCSs and things like that, and then wait for the events in real life to come back, and then I will play Konami events again.
Yeah, I also am not like the biggest fan of remote dueling either. Like I have a setup. It's okay. It's not the greatest, but it works. But I just like being in front of another person. I like to actually interact with them, and especially when like they're playing decks where I have to like read cards again and again. Like I've had to read Altergeist cards like 4 times in the same match just to remember what they do, because I can't, and even then I can't remember what every single one does because I have that problem. So, and it's a lot easier doing that in real life than it is like doing it online, doing it like with remote duels. At least like if I play online like Dueling Book, then I can at least like hover over the card and just read it as I do it. But it's a little bit harder to do that in remote
like
duels,
this one.
I find
Able to read the card, the whole internet things that can happen, right? It can disconnect randomly. So yeah,
yeah.
I prefer playing online, like on DB, but I don't judge the ones who like it. I think it's fine. I think it's good for the game, even.
Of course, and the whole LCS that was done on Dueling Book, if I recall. Yeah. All right, and my God, like I've been so impressed like by the way that you've been able to like just knock off all these tournaments. And again, like you won like 3 in a row, and you finally got your first. I think it was your first LCS win, wasn't it? Because you come like second like several times, but not first.
So I started playing LCSs in October.
Yeah,
I play October, November, December, and January. Mm-hmm. I got second, top 4, top 8, top 4, and now I won. So. Yeah, I'm liking. I think I should have started sooner, but I think I didn't start sooner playing LCSs because I really dislike Block Dragon and that Emancipator. So almost the whole year, as soon as the pandemic hits, was with Block Dragon. So I didn't play. I only started playing LCSs as soon as Block Dragon got banned. So
yeah. So last episode, we had your teammates Christian and Gabriel on, and I asked them if they had a shout out for you. I don't know if you listened to last week's podcast or not, but I asked them if they have a shout out for you, if they had a message for you, and they said that I can't make fun of Paulo because he helped carry the team to win the championship, and and they were complimenting you. They're saying good things about you. Did you have any thoughts at all about the last week's podcast?
I didn't watch
you watched it with
cool.
your teammates on and not you?
And yeah, this one, this LCS, like joking aside, like I did really well. I went, like I personally went 9-1.
Yeah.
So. And like I said, sometimes you're the one carrying, sometimes you're the one being carried. For example, I can give you an example. In the YCS in Atlanta that we won as a team, I was the worst one on Swiss. But when we went to the top cut, I won all my matches. So so I compensate being carried in the Swiss by winning top cuts. So and this is exactly how those type of events go. Sometimes you're the one winning, sometimes you are the losing, and you lose and you go, oh my God, we're going to lose, and then they win, and it's like such a relief because you lost a match, but you won. It's so crazy when that happened, right? Yeah, super cool.
Yeah. So in North America, we have a saying. It's sometimes it's not always how you start, it's how you finish, and that's exactly what you did. Like maybe what the greatest is Swiss, but you won when it mattered the most. It was every single top cut game,
and that's the last one, right? Because it was the last match of the tournament. Because my match with Jesse was the game free, the match free, right?
Yeah,
the last one.
Yeah, because I remember that play because he was trying to go off on you, but you had he was trying to pick apart. I think you had 4 back rows and a multi-roll, and he couldn't get by because you had Shizuku. He wouldn't use his unicorn to attack your Shizuku because that's pluses for you, easy pluses, and you just had so much control of the board. And then you did your turn. You didn't kill him, and then I remember you hit him with a Lancia, and then he just immediately
remember
because he ran out of resources at that point.
I was talking with Michelle and Hector, and when I talked with Michelle, I said, okay.
Yeah.
At the situation the game was, there was no way we lose. Like normally, the game was won, And then I talked to him and said, okay, we just can't lose to a random thing like time, getting game loss for slow play, things like that. So I talked to him and said, okay, if I'm taking too long, speed me up. Because it's the only way for us to lose. And then Hector was the one that said every minute that passes, okay, 3 minutes left, 4 minutes left, 5 minutes to time. Like if it was necessary, it wasn't necessary. We won before time was called. But he was like calling time for me to be aware of how much, because the situation was super one at the time. Like I had everything. And we made sure to not lose to a random factor like time and losing because of damage or get like a slow play warning, and that became a game loss in a one game. So it was super fun because we worked as a team to not lose to a random factor. So that was cool too.
Do you like playing 3v3s more, or you just like playing the regular like 1v1?
But I really like it. I feel like I want to play more to have a better opinion on this, because the fact that 3v3s takes away a lot of inconsistencies in performance is really hard to have a good team and not do well. I really like this because I mean, sometimes you can get unlucky in an event, right? It can happen. But having a really good team and 3 players getting unlucky at the same time is really hard. So it takes away a lot of the randomness that card games has. So that's why top cuts are so stacked when 3v3s happen. Every single 3v3 that we had was won or topped or anything by really good players. So it's not a coincidence in my eyes.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. And I'll go from my personal experience, because I played a 3v3 just for fun. And like 2 people came up and asked me if I want to be the partner. I'm like, sure, I have time to kill, so I agreed to it. And then I found out that they were both one was playing Burn and one was playing Reversal Quiz. And yeah, so I'm like, oh my god, I'm like, what did I get myself into? And unfortunately, the Reversal Quiz player like lost every single match that they played. It sucked. And like I was sitting in the middle, so the opponents across from me, they were typically the strongest ones. Then they knew how to play against those decks, so they could easily coach like their teammates, say, okay, this is what they're trying to do. Don't let them do this, because they didn't know how to play against a Reversal Quiz. But because you had that one person who did know, and that it took away that randomness, and then the Reversal Quiz guy got beat easily because they knew the weakness of the deck. They knew what to do, like how not to let it happen, and that's what kind of happened. Like they just knew how to beat those kinds of decks that would typically surprise somebody in a 1v1, for example. So I agree with you on that it takes away a lot of the randomness and like the inconsistencies of the top cut, and really makes it that the better players win, like because because there's a lot less luck involved.
We are trying to win, right? Every time, even a single event, but sometimes things happen. So when I feel that the situation is more in control because of those things, those factors, for being a 3v3, it makes me really happy that we have. I think now we can say that we have a Yu-Gi-Oh way that is less random than before, and I think Konami is going to push on this. They couldn't because like the word pandemic and everything, right? But the last event was a 3v3, right? So yeah, and they did a lot of 3v3s in a row.
Las Vegas, yeah.
So they like this. I feel like they can do more with this. They can do, I don't know, many things can be done with this team aspect. They can make this more of an e-sport. They can make countries clash against each other. Canada against US, against Germany, against Brazil. There's so many things that can be done with this situation. And also for a broadcast type of thing, having teams against each other is different than players against each other. I think give more stories to be told. And this is the type of thing that Konami needs to look into, because this is how games are share with players, and people share, look at this team that let's say, for example, we play against Jesse team finals, right? And that was a really good match. Imagine if that wasn't streamed, right? And then there is another 3v3 3 months later, and then let's say we play against each other again, our team, right? And And then this is a story to tell. This is going most likely be on stream, and they're going to talk about the last time that I won, and now it's going to be the revenge. This creates stories that's really important, not only for a card game, but competitions in general. Every single sport has something like this, some statistics that can be, I mean, many things can be done. And I think if they really see that this is a thing that they could do more often, many things can come from Yu-Gi-Oh.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I do too when I do commentating for sports. Like I always try to look at the teams and see if there's any kind of story or any history behind them. Like for example, like if we go look at football, for example, like there could be like a rivalry between like Brazil and Italy, for example. Like there could be like a big soccer rivalry right there, for example, and like we could make a story about it, which makes the game more interesting. Is like maybe they met like the finals of the World Cup, and like maybe like Brazil beat Italy, something like that, which kind of makes the game more interesting because some people like stories as part of like their sport. They like to see that kind of thing happen, and I always try to like create a story or put something to make the game a little bit more interesting than like just looking at just two people that are just playing on the dueling table. Like for example, if like you and I went together, it's like, oh yeah, these two like they're good friends, but they also like they were on my podcast together, and then we played each other. You coached me, and now that we got to play each other in like the finals of this event, it's just a fun story to make up. It creates more drama, which is something that maybe Konami could use a little more of, because like again, like it's those kind of things that make the game a little bit more interesting.
I hope that they're going into something like this in the future. Maybe they are. Yeah. Maybe they're thinking about this. We don't know, right?
Maybe, yeah, because that's what I try to do. It's just it's always fun to add a little bit of like interesting flavor to it, a little bit extra to get people like more interested. Like why do I want to watch these two people? Is like I know them already. Like so what? Like why like give me a reason why to watch them. That's the question you have to ask yourself if you want people to like look at your products. Like, okay, why do I want to watch this? It's like, why do I want to listen to this podcast right now? For example, that's the question I always have to answer every single week to everyone out there. It's like, why should I listen to your podcast? It's kind of like that, for example. And for you, it's like, why do I want to look at your commentary? What makes you so special that you can give the commentary? And it's because you are like, again, you're a 3-time champion. You have like over 20 like premier tops. So like you have a lot of experience on top of that as well. And that's a big deal for a lot of people, and that would make you a good reason why you're a Duelist Academy coach. You have the credentials for it, so it makes sense that you're in that position. So it's kind of like asking those questions, to generate interest.
Let's hope that they are. I think that's a really valid point. And if they are, these things are going to get better eventually.
Yeah. And then one other thing on top of this too is that, like, again, when you said when they do more 3v3s, you really could make a world championship on 3v3s. Like I said, like we already have one for 1v1. Like there's a possibility we could do it for like 3v3 tournaments. And then again, like you have like team like North America, or if they want to divide us up again and make a team Canada, team USA, then you could have like team Brazil, team Japan, team like things like that. You can make a whole nother event on top of that as well to garner interest in the game, because maybe there are some people who are more interested in playing 3v3s than playing 1v1s, and maybe you just have people just like playing 1v1s, but at least you have something for everyone, at least step, in that case.
But trying to make some type of country event, like even US, you can do in US like state events and have teams for each state and do something internally first, and then if that works, they go globally. I don't know. There's so many things that can be done. That there's so much potential that is not used, that I just hope that they do something like this in the future, because this is so much better for advertising the game growth.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that want like different formats of the game, for example, because like for Duel Links, like that came out and that has its own popular following. Like I know several people who play Duel Links but don't play like the actual card game. I know like casual people that have never touched Yu-Gi-Oh cards ever, but they'll play Duel Links, for example. So you can attract like a completely different crowd. And then if you want to put 3v3s in, you can attract another crowd, maybe attract people that aren't quite as good at the game, but if they get that coaching that they can get in the middle of the game, they can be like a little bit better. Like I'm sure that if I put like two guys from my local and I paired them with you, they would play a lot better than if they were playing like on their own in a 1v1 tournament. And I think that would help like carry a lot of players that are like maybe struggling a little bit or just need a little push in like the right direction to become like a really good player.
Like I said, there's so many possibilities that they can be worked with this whole 3v3 possibility scenario, right? The situation. Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely. And let's see if Yu-Gi-Oh and Konami is going to run with this idea, because I would be very interested if they did like a 3v3 like World Championships or a WCQ, and not to mention like those events go by. I would think they would go by faster because there's less rounds. Yeah, there's less rounds to do, and then not to mention you can stop some matches in the middle of it, because if two players on one team already win,
also,
you don't need to play the other one. So like it's over at that point.
Many decisions of Konami are weird about how the tournaments are run, and the main goal of a tournament, of Yu-Gi-Oh tournament, is to end. Yeah. The goal of a tournament is to end as fast as possible.
Yeah. It is. I mean, maybe we think that's the reason why we have like the new time rule where it ends in the phase, because that speeds up the tournament a lot as opposed to 5 turns. Right? So I think again, like the 3v3 could be just another way to help make the tournament go faster.
What about
Yeah. So maybe the 3v3s make it go faster. Oh no! Oh, I've had long discussions about that. Very long discussions. Oh. So who knows? Like maybe they'll make 3v3 World Championships separate from 1v1s, and that would be a very interesting format to watch in itself. I would be very interested in that, because I kind of like the team concept. I like to see like the coaches, kind of help each other out, teammates helping each other out, because sometimes like you can have like 5 seconds where you just forget anything that happens, and you just need a little push to help get yourself back into it, and that's where your teammates come in and they help out. Like I love watching team sports in like on TV, and this is kind of like pretty close to the same thing. I like that team aspect that helps out, because I want to see the best Yu-Gi-Oh played when I go watch these streams. I want to see like the best players play like the best decks. I want to see like who is the best. That's what I want to see. And like the 3v3s, I think will make it a lot better for that. As you pointed out, it takes away a lot of the luck and a lot of the uncertainty of it, and it really is like the best players
December,
that win.
Right? Like boards in August, and they go January or December. They're usually dead months for Yu-Gi-Oh competitive scene. Sometimes they have one YCS in Australia in January, but not in the other countries, right? So maybe that could be a month that this could happen. I don't know, just thinking about ideas out loud.
Yeah, and it's an idea, and again, it allows more people to go to Worlds, because I'm sure that there's been so many players that want to go to the World Championships but never have a chance to, because they just miss out, or they just haven't found the format or whatever. But either way, this is definitely be something, and I think this is a good idea for moving forward if Konami decides to really run with like 3v3 World Championships. So, Paulo, it has been a pleasure to have you on. Thank you again for coming on finally. I'm glad that you're doing well with Duel Links Academy, and again, I was very happy to hear that you won the 3v3. So congratulations again for winning that event, and I hope to see you more and more as we go along, because I've really appreciated what you've been doing on your YouTube channel with all that, because watching that kind of stuff like really helps my game, because I'm that player that I can top regionals, but not all the time. And I've only topped one YCS ever in my life. So I'm at that point where like I'm good, but there's definitely a lot of room for me to get better. And I think you're helping me out a little bit more like every time I watch. So I'm glad that, you were able to talk to me, and, hopefully this will help me get better for down the road when I go back to being able to play competitive.
Like I said before to you, I always heard all the podcasts. I usually do. Heard all of them. And really happy to be here. And the channel is to help people to improve. So if he's doing his job. So yeah, that's it. It's really helped to be here.
Yeah, and that's what I want to do. It's to help everybody. It's to get everybody to learn a little bit more. And this is supposed to help in ways that people never thought that they would be helped before. Because I've learned so many different like strategies and philosophies now, having to talk to every single person that I've had on this podcast. So I've definitely learned a lot now. Let's just hope I can finally put this all in practice finally and see if I've really learned from my own podcast doing this. So we'll see. Did you want to say hi to anybody or any shoutouts right? Before we go?
Christian and Gabe. Also, shout out to another testing partner that I have, which is Guilherme, player from Brazil, which I test a lot with him. My team jobber, I'm on team jobber. I never play actual event for team jobber because I am this year, and yeah, COVID happened, but. And also shout out to the Delicious Academy.
Yeah, cool.
We have a lot of content there. Not only the coach sessions, but they have the Discord channel. We have the post on the Patreon that has videos and articles. So it's really cool. I feel like, not because I'm there, but I feel you can really improve by doing that. Not only the coach sessions, but everything else that we have.
And then don't forget to check out Paulo's channel at Prrj Yu-Gi-Oh on YouTube. Almost at 8,000 subscribers. I am one of them. Get on it and get on his channel. The link will be below in the description. Paulo Gonçalves, thank you so much again for taking the time out to be on my podcast. It was a pleasure having you on, and it was good to talk to you finally.
Thank you.
And congratulations again on your LCS 3v3 win.
Too,